Syracuse basketball, it's in the dumper. I mean, this is really bad, and I understand people are struggling right now with this. All of my fellow fans of Syracuse sports, basketball, of course, specifically right now, we got real problems here. Now, look, they weren't projected to be in the tournament this year anyway, based on their early season performance and, frankly, most of their performance after that. I mean, they really haven't done that well, and so it's a real problem right now. But what I want to do is I want to dispel some of the myths that people have been spouting, one of which is that, the zone defense is no longer effective. It's a waste of resources, and we need to go to the man-to-man and all that nonsense. It's nonsense to me because the game hasn't changed that much. People say, "Oh, people are shooting better." You hear all the excuses, that people are shooting the ball better, and so the zone defense doesn't work on the three-point shot. You know what? Nonsense. This is more about the players in that situation, because if you watch the game like I do, you notice that the players right now are not going out on the shooter. They're kind of doubling down. They're kind of cheating up on players going in the interior. And I understand the zone defense lends itself to that kind of a thing where you got to kind of you got to be in your area where your man is, and it does leave holes open, at the top of the key, and so you got to kind of make sure that people are hitting their shots there as well. But I think this is why Jim Boeheim recruits for the kind of player that can do all those things. They have the length and the speed to be able to cover those areas, put some pressure on everybody. And when they get it out to a three-point shooter, they can get out there and protect that area as well. What's happening, though, is you've got these people who think that because the zone is being exclusively utilized today and shooting has been really good against this team, that they equate, the zone must be the problem. No. Do you watch the games? I mean, think about this. You notice they're hitting those threes, I would say 95% of those made threes, no pressure on them. Nobody's out on them. I mean, look, yes, it's more difficult to get out on a three-point shooter in the zone. It is more difficult, but it's very doable. Some of the best Syracuse teams who were in the title hunt, the ones that were in the title games, the Final Fours, the team that won the national championship, those teams had fantastic defenses, including against the three. And you could say, well, that was a while ago, and the players didn't shoot as well. You know what? Even if they shot a little bit better, look, remember something. This is not a zero-sum game. If the other team is shooting better, Syracuse can also get better shooters too. So it isn't like, Syracuse doesn't have the ability to kind of even the score on the offensive side. And you're not looking at it that way. You're looking at it the wrong way. Like, what, Syracuse is only a defensive team then? So if their defense is zone, that means that essentially that they can't, because the shooters are better on the other side, that, they can't win. No, they're not going to win enough games. That's malarkey. If you watch, I want you to pay attention. Now, this Pittsburgh team that's coming up is a very good offensive team. That's going to be a tough game to win, obviously. If they get out on those shooters and they are more relentless in that area, I think they have a chance of winning. I'm not saying they're going to win, but they have a chance. And it comes down to what? You have to get out on the shooters. So the zone defense, yes, it has its weaknesses. One of its main weaknesses is that it's more difficult to get defensive rebounds. It's just because you're facing, the way you're dealing with it, you're in a zone, you're in an area. You're not directly challenging a particular player, chasing a player around, and it is more difficult to get rebounds that way. I understand that. However, it's not the defensive scheme. I'm telling you guys, it's about the players right now. They're just not doing a good enough job. Now, does that mean they can't ever do a good enough job? No, I think they're eventually going to become better at what they do. But again, how many freshmen are on this team? This team is very young, and that's another problem with the team in general. When you're this young, you're going to be inconsistent. And that's what's happening right now. You got a lot of inconsistencies, and this normally doesn't happen with a Syracuse team because, we had the sanctions that came out against the team a few years back, and it kind of hurt recruiting. And what happens is you get a team that, finally we're starting to bring in some better recruits, but all these recruits are freshmen. And then when you have the NIL coming in and players able to transfer immediately without penalty, it creates problems. You really have to be on top of that. Could you say that's a deficiency of the Boeheim regime, that they're not able to stem the tide of these kinds of issues? It's possible. I mean, me personally, and I want to hear, by the way, I want to hear your comments and your opinions on this, but I would say, in my opinion, I think if there's one area, that's the one area where I would say, okay, they're not staying on top of this. They're not able to keep the good players here and say, look, we really need you here. First of all, and again, this is my philosophy because this is how I was brought up. I really believe in, loyalty is very important. You have to have loyalty. And I think it depends on, look, if a player's going pro and there's money involved, obviously, I'm not going to tell a player, well, stay here and risk your entire future. In case you get injured, you might not be able to get anything in the future. But go ahead and risk that to stay here. I would say I'm not going to do that, but I am going to say this. That notwithstanding, I think if you have a situation where a player has a chance to improve their game, they're not going to be a pro the next year, or at least not going to get drafted highly enough for it to matter, especially now with the NIL, because players can get paid a lot of money and they don't have to worry about going pro. So what I would say is in that situation, I would stress, as a coach, I would stress loyalty. Because remember something, school is also for learning things, not just playing basketball or sports in general. You can teach them. You can be not just a coach, but be a teacher. Encourage them to do what is right. Because remember something, when you teach loyalty to the student, to that student athlete, what you're teaching them is a very valuable life lesson. These are things that are very important for a student to learn. To let them know, look, I understand you're chasing something that you didn't find here or you didn't think you had here. Your minutes weren't up, you weren't playing as well as you wanted to. Do you honestly think going somewhere else is going to change that? Now look, it's possible, but I would encourage that player. Loyalty is more important. Whenever you're constantly breaking, connections and burning bridges to move on to the next thing because you didn't think it was working, this is what society has become. We've been teaching people that it's okay, just go ahead. Oh, your marriage isn't working? Let's get divorced. Yeah, that's going to solve all my problems. Now look, obviously, if there's major issues like abuse, things like that, that's a different situation. But in general, I think people give up too easily. So when you teach these players, yeah, go ahead, you can leave, you're not happy, go on. No. If a player is not happy, there must be a reason for that. What is the reason? A lot of times because they're not being productive like they thought they would. They're not getting the points. They're not getting off the bench. But a lot of times they need to be taught there's a reason why you're not getting off the bench. There's a reason why, because you're not producing. Now that might be the fault of the offensive setup or the defensive scheme, whatever it is. It may be, but chances are it's not. I think what it is oftentimes, that player hasn't worked hard enough. They haven't done what it takes. Maybe they don't have the confidence yet. They haven't built themselves up to that point. So I would preach loyalty. That's how I would do things. I would say, look, man, if you continue to just burn your bridges and move forward somewhere else because you don't think it's working, that's how you're going to conduct your life. And I'll tell you this, people don't like that. If you're looking for a job, or if you're looking to make any connection in business, people, if they know that you've gone from job to job to job and left this thing in a shambles and did this thing, they're going to be hesitant to work with you because they're going to think, oh, first thing that goes wrong, they're going to leave me. They're going to leave me in the lurch and cause problems. So we should be preaching loyalty to these players and telling them, look, you can do better. There's so much more for you if you just focus on what you have. This is what you decided. Work on it. Now, any major issues notwithstanding, I'm not talking about not getting minutes, not scoring enough, not playing better, good enough defense, whatever. No, I'm talking about if there's a major problem, again, if you're having serious issues with other players or with the coach, maybe the coach has done things to create a bad environment for you. But even then, I would say try to work on it because, again, sometimes people get off on the wrong foot. So let's preach loyalty first and foremost. That's how you do this. When a coach is very ambivalent about what their players are planning for the future, when a player comes in, well, I want to leave. Well, and the coach says, hey, there's the door. When you do that, this is what you get, stuff like this. This is what happens. So you have to preach loyalty and say, look, let's stick together. Let's, show the world that you are able to be successful after so much failure, after all of these things that you've been trying and it hasn't worked so far, and it's tough. Here's a quote, something that I don't like very much. Now, there is some truth to it, again, but it's all conditional upon certain things. When they say, I think it was Einstein's famous quote, what is it, you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Look, I understand that. That has truth to it. But remember, sometimes if you're doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working at that time, it's because you have to keep practicing, right? Until it works, until you get it to work. That's what practice is. And you've seen this in sports. You've seen teams, players who struggled the first couple of years, especially in pro sports. It's very tough to get ahead. But, you struggle and you're working hard at something. And then finally the light comes on. And after all that failure, you did the same things. You were practicing the same way, trying to get to that point, working out, working hard. And this is true of anything in life. If you're working out and you're struggling to get that 200 pounds off the ground, guess what? If you're struggling to get that off the ground, you're going to struggle for a while until finally it's going to work. It's going to happen. You just have to build yourself up to that point. So when people use that thing, insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and getting it, and expecting a different result. I think it's not always the best thing to say. Now, there may be some truth to it in certain principles, but not as it pertains to sports, especially, and here's the key, guys. The key is when you know that something works. When you know that it works, and it has worked in the past, again, history is an indicator of the future. When you know that the zone defense, for instance, works and has worked and is very successful, it can work in the future. You just have to work it. If it's not working, chances are it's the players then. They haven't developed that ability, that skill, the strength, the speed, whatever it takes. They have not developed it yet, and it hasn't worked yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to work. So all you guys who keep saying to me, insanity, they're trying the same thing over and over again. Look, tell me in the comments what you think about that, because you know what? It sounds like a bunch of malarkey to me. So I want you to, and don't just tell me that you disagree and that I'm a fruitcake and laugh at me or whatever. I want you to clearly define why you think that, that trying the zone defense still, is not working anymore. And again, don't say it because people are shooting better. That's baloney. Because again, this is not a zero-sum game. The Syracuse offense could get shooters. They have some good shooters too, and they've shot pretty well sometimes. They've been a little inconsistent there, but the point is that it's not a zero-sum game. And you have seen in the recent past Syracuse teams that play good zone defense, and it has worked against good shooting. So again, look, we've seen it in the NCAA tournament where they have defended good shooting teams with the zone, and it worked. They actually beat those teams, and they've gotten to the Sweet 16s and the Final Fours and all those things. So again, come up with something better. I really want to hear a good explanation so you can, so that I can maybe change my tune a little bit. Maybe I'll make another comment, another video, and say, hey, look, this particular person, they convinced me otherwise. But you know what? Until I see that, no, I'm not going to do it. And beyond that, of course, then we have the issue of Jim Boeheim. Is he too old? Now, that kind of plays into the, playing the zone over and over again, and it's kind of the old ways, and he thinks his dinosaur ways are going to work, and they're not. And you know what? Again, I don't think... Look, and I get frustrated. Like I said, when I'm watching a game, I had to turn that last game off. I couldn't even watch all of it. It was so ugly. But I got to tell you, whenever I start feeling like, well, Jim Boeheim just needs to get out of here, you know what? I really think about it, and I say, more reasonably, let's let cooler heads prevail. And look, I'm not saying he should stay forever. Maybe it is time for him to pack it in soon, perhaps after this season. Who knows? But I would say this. I don't think he's done yet. I think the players are the issue right now. And again, I don't blame them. They're young. Most of this team is freshmen. You can't expect to get, a square peg into a round hole. It's not time yet. They're still in the oven. They're still cooking. This is what happens. This is the way it works. And I just don't think... And again, you can go back to recruiting and say, well, this is Boeheim's fault. He didn't get it done. He didn't get the players in that he needed to. A lot of factors there, guys. A lot of factors. But I would say, let's play devil's advocate. And let's pretend that, he is going to retire. He has decided, I've had it. I'm not going to put up with this anymore, and the complaints and the ungrateful fan base, whatever it is. Here's what I would say about that. I would say that at the very least, I don't know if I trust the current staff, like in other words, recruiting from within. I don't know if I trust that yet. I'm not saying they're not good coaches. Look, I love GMAC. He was a fantastic player. He seems like a good assistant coach, and all those things are great. However, they're still not proven commodities. Syracuse is a top brand. Now, I know you're going to laugh. You're saying, well, look at them. They're horrible. Doesn't matter. You can't look at a 2 or 3 year span and say, well, this team is so horrible. They're awful. Oh, this is the word. There's no way you can say they're a brand. Syracuse is a brand. They are a basketball brand more than anything else. They still are. And it would take an awful long time for them to lose that. So, in that light, we have to understand that brand demands superiority. It demands a quality coaching product. That's what it demands. And so, in light of that, I think Jim Boeheim would be better to help the university find a proven legendary coach to replace him. It has to be somebody who has proven his worth and is willing to come to Syracuse, possibly back into the game. Names that have been bandied about, you have Jay Wright. Now, he left Villanova, like, the guy was exuding success. He could have stayed there for another 50 years. Why he left, I don't know, but Jay Wright is a possibility. Someone like that. You could bring in, I wouldn't want to bring in Calipari, which I don't know why he would come here from Kentucky. That's, he's not going to do that. But I would say a lot of people have talked about Rick Pitino. Remember, he was a Syracuse assistant many years ago, and obviously a proven commodity. That is a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but that is definitely a possibility. Could Rick Pitino come here? Absolutely. And I got to tell you something. He's a fantastic coach. Obviously, he's done very well against Jim Boeheim. So that's another possibility. There are others, but I would say this. Let's not jump the gun here and expect that to happen right away. I don't think Jim Boeheim is going to leave right now. I think he really has faith in what he is rebuilding here. I think he does. I think one of the things that needs to happen, I think instead of us focusing on hating the guy and attacking him and saying, get him out of here, that old dinosaur, get him out. I think what we should be focusing on is helping him in some way, getting him the NIL help. Now we have rich donors, boosters who are bringing in recruits now. We got to work more on that. We have to get more of those great players in here and pay them to come here. I'm sorry, that's the game. The game. This is what has become of the game. I'm not a big fan of what they're doing, but you know what? It is what it is, and you have to play the arms race. If you don't play this game, you're going to lose this game. And you're going to lose a lot of games. It's going to get uglier than it is now. So that has to be taken care of. Something else, too, that I know a lot of people are talking about, the NCAA needs to give Jim Boeheim back his wins. Because it believe it or not, that brings a positive outlook and atmosphere for the whole fan base, for everybody involved. It makes people think more positively about everything. And it might even help with recruiting. I don't know. I mean, you tell the guy, look, this guy has, he still, I think, has the second most wins ever. If he gets those back, it's possible he surpasses, if he stays long enough, it's possible that he surpasses Mike Krzyzewski. I don't know if that's going to happen. But these are things that all kind of fit together as a nice little puzzle to help the Syracuse brand. So that's what I would say. I've been a little bit too long-winded, so I'm going to end it now with that. But, give me your suggestions, your thoughts. I really would welcome them. I love the discussion because I'm at a loss about certain things, too. What do we do? Where do we go from here? It's very frustrating. I'm a fan, just like everyone else. I feel the same that all people feel. I'm very disappointed in this season and the outlook here. And NIT, I don't know. I'm not even sure I want to see that. I haven't even made my decision about that yet. If they make it, if they're invited, I'm not even sure that I would be enthusiastic about that because, again, this brand, the Syracuse brand, is blue blood. We are at the top. I would say top 5. Others would say top 10. Doesn't matter. They're at the top. And they deserve better than this. And so it is disappointing. But give me your best suggestions. Also, please like the video, subscribe to my videos, and I come on once in a while here on YouTube. I haven't as much lately, but I am going to start doing that a little bit more. And also, please visit my website if you want daily news and interesting views. It's michaelantonio.biz. There will be a link down in the description, so please visit that. Also, I have a great page on my website, michaelantonio.biz/free money. It's great money-making opportunities, most of which are free, and it'll help you get started to a better financial situation in your life if you put a little work into it. But anyway, please, thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to talk to you guys later. I love you all. Bye now.